bitter words. You read earlier on Proverbs 25. Let's see it again, Proverbs 25. So an arrow can be a bitter word or rowdy. And yet, there are demons carrying it. Proverbs 25 verse 18. Proverbs 25 and verse 18. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul, a sword, and a sharp arrow. A false witness, a false testimony. Testimony. Also, you read in the use of arrows in the scriptures for a metaphor for the attacks of the enemy. For example, in Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians 6 and verse 16. It's not like I call now that you shouldn't open. Ephesians 6 verse 16. A metaphor for the attacks of the enemy. Ephesians 6 verse 16. Above all, it says, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. The shield of faith, wherewith it says you shall be able to quench the fiery darts. When it says fiery dart there, well, fiery dart there means flaming arrows. Arrows of fire. Arrows of fire. It could be in temptations and trials that the enemy uses against the believer. Go to Psalm 91. So the enemy uses trials and temptations to pull down the believer. Oh, Nijabo. Psalm 91. Psalm 91, are you there? Look at verses 5. Psalm 91 verses 5. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day. When he uses arrow here, he talks about sudden danger, unexpected occurrences that the enemy orchestrates. He says, you will not be afraid of the terror by night, nor for the arrow, he says, that flieth by day. So the arrow could be daily. In our daily activities, he says, don't be afraid. Go back to that Psalms chapter 11. We read Psalms 11 earlier on and verses 2. Psalms 11 and verses 2. For lo, the wicked, he says, they bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privately shoot at the upright in hearts. To shoot at the upright in hearts. Look at the next thing he said. He said, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Let me ask you here. When he says, if the foundations be destroyed, what was he talking about? What will he mean? Is he talking about the foundation of the house? No. Obviously, the foundation of the house there is talking about your hearts. The moment the enemy has shot your heart, he says, what can the righteous do? Because ministry is done with the heart. It's done with all your heart. Like the psalmist said in Psalm 78, he led his father's sheep with the integrity of his heart and skillfulness of hands. Psalm 78. Quickly see that in verses 70 to 72. Psalm 78. Just go to verse 72. Psalm 78 verse 72. He says, so he fed them according to the integrity of his heart and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. Integrity of his heart. So ministry is done from the heart. From the heart. So if he says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? He's talking about if an attack has been launched against your heart. From the heart. From the heart. You read also in 1 Kings, still in corroboration with that's Psalm 78, 72, 1 Kings, I believe chapter 14 also. Well, let's read 1 Kings 9 first. I believe verses 4 also. 1 Kings 9 verse 4. If thou will walk before me as David the father walked, in integrity of hearts, in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, I will keep my statutes and my judgments. He says, in integrity of hearts. Look at 1 Kings chapter 14 also. 1 Kings 14. I believe verses 9 or so. Verse 8, no verse 9. 1 Kings 14 verse 8. And rent the kingdom away from the house of David, and gave it thee, and yet thou hast not been as my servant David, who kept my commandments and who followed me with all his heart, to do that only which was right in my eyes. It says, followed me with all his heart. 1 Kings chapter 15 verses 5. 1 Kings 15 verse 5. Because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, and turned out aside, it says, and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, save only in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. It says he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. It says, and turned not aside from anything. That means he followed everything with all his heart. Look at verses 14. But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, Asa's heart, it says, was perfect with the Lord all his days. That was a king. His heart was perfect. He says, but with the Lord all his days. Let me show you two more places in reference to that. Ephesians 6 verse 6 and 7. Ephesians 6 in verses 6 and 7. Ephesians 6 verse 6 and 7. But how are you there? And see properly. I've always instructed you about that. Ephesians 6 verse 6. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but the servant of Christ, doing the will of God from the hearts. The will of God from the hearts. Verse 7. With good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men. He says, doing the will of God with the heart. Colossians 3 22 23. Colossians 3 22 23. Servant, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. Verse 23. And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men. It says, do it with your hearts. So where you serve God from is from your hearts. You serve God from your hearts. So in Psalms 11, go back to Psalms 11 and verses 2. Psalms 11 and verses 2. What is the foundation that David was talking about? The foundation was in reference to the acts of man. Ibi tí gbogbo àwọn ìkan mìíràn, ibi tí ó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ nìyẹn. All of that things stems from the heart. Psalms 11 verse 3. If the foundations be destroyed, it says, what can the righteous do? That's when the devil has launched an attack against your heart. An arrow. It says, what can the righteous do? Go to Lamentations 3. At times today, what the enemy has done is that the devil has launched an arrow into a man's heart and is deep down in depression, in deep anguish, right, and mourning. Lamentations 3 and verses 12 to 13. Lamentations 3 from verses 12 to 13. He says, verse 12, he hath bent his bow, says, and set me as a mark for the arrow. Verse 13, he hath caused the arrows of his quiver to enter into my reins. The arrows of anguish, the arrows of pain, says he has allowed it to enter into my reins. Offer is on the waranyi. Offer issue. Oh, that's what I'm praying for you this morning with. Offer issue, offer issue, offer around. Koni bale, sanu agaranyi. Says he has bent his bow, set as a mark for the arrow. He has caused the arrows of his quiver. That's the arrows of anguish, the arrows of pain. Says to enter into my reins. Reins. Look at Job chapter 6 verse 4 again. Remember we read that earlier on. At times arrows could be intense suffering and trials. Intense sufferings and trials. Arrows in the scriptures is used for the attack of the enemy. Christian Matisu. Mati Darale. Iwaju Otalowa. Mashora. Job 6 verse 4. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. That's talking about his temptation and trials, his anguish. He says, the poison whereof drinketh up my spirit, the terrors of God do set themselves in array. He says, against me. The trials that Job was experiencing, Experiencing. Look at Psalm 38 also and verses 2. Psalm 38 and verses 2. It says, your arrows stick fast in me, and thy hand presseth me sore. When it talks about arrows here, it's talking about God's discipline, right? And rebuke, which now resulted into distress. Distress. Look at also these texts. These are texts we read earlier on, but I'm just showing you something different in those texts. Deuteronomy chapter 32 also and verses 23. We read earlier on 23 and verse 42. But let's read 23 alone now. Here it talks about calamities. Calamities. Deuteronomy 32:23. It says, I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spend my arrows upon them. Mischiefs. These are calamities. 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 Calamities, right, as a result of disobedience to those who disobey God. It says, I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spend my arrows. It says, upon them. Buburo ni shubulu yin. Psalms 57. Buburota. Psalms 57 and verses 4. Psalms 57 verse 4. Oftentimes when the enemy wants to destroy a man, what does he do? He shoots arrows. Are you Psalm 57? Look at verses 4. My soul is among lions, and I lie even among them that are set on fire, even the sons of men whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a what? Does anyone has a Yoruba Bible here? Where's Tashade? You have a Yoruba Bible with you? Read that text for us in Yoruba. Get the mic and read. Psalm 57 verses 4. Is that mic on? Psalms 57 and verses 4. Yes, I'm listening to you.
Ọkàn mi wà láàrin àwọn kìnìún.
Ọkàn mi wà láàrin àwọn kìnìún.
Èmi tilẹ̀ dùbúlẹ̀ láàrin àwọn tí ó gbiná.
Àwọn tí ó gbiná.
Èyí ni àwọn ọmọ
ọkàn yóò ní wà láàrin àwọn kìnìún o. Ní dùbúlẹ̀ láàrin àwọn tó ti gbiná.
Èyí ni àwọn ọmọ ènìyàn. Ẹ̀yin ẹni tí ń ṣe. Ẹ̀yin ẹni tí ń ṣe ọkọ̀ àti ọfà. Ọkọ̀ àti ọfà. Àti ahọ́n wọn. Idà mímú.
Idà kíni?
Idà mímú.
Idà mú. Idà tó mú. Ẹnu àwọn èèyàn nìyẹn o. When you listen to me like this, you now pray for yourself. Tó bá lọ́rọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ òdì tó ń jẹ́ sọ sórí ayé ẹ̀, gbogbo àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ kí n bẹ́ẹ̀ lè pè ọfà kò ní ṣẹ. Àwọn ọfà nínú ọ̀rọ̀. At times it could be in conversations in the day. You are just going around and in fact it might not even be you. Only my it could be somebody else, but because you are around here, go to our tamoy. Ọ̀rọ̀ òdì ò ní tamọ́ yín. Look at Ezekiel 2. So he uses arrows here to talk about the destructive power of the enemy. The destructive power of the enemy. What are arrows? When you look at the scriptures, there's a motive for attacks of the enemy. Ezekiel chapter 3, not Ezekiel 2, Ezekiel 3 and verses 16. It's going to pass at the end of 7 days that the word of the Lord came unto me saying, Ezekiel chapter 3 verse 16, verse 17. He says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. He says, therefore hear the word at my mouth and give them warning from me. In verses 18, he says, verse 18, when I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from the wicked way, to save his life, for the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity. He says, but his blood will I require at thy hand. Yet if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, he says, nor from his wicked way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. Does anyone ask the New International Version here? What translation do you have? Huh? Gideon's. Read verse 16 for us. 16 or 17. Do you know where we're reading? That means we weren't following us here. You were following. Yes, you know where we were. Are you reading to me?
Now it came to pass at the end of the 7 days that the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word from my mouth.
The word at my mouth, and give them warning
from me.
Is to escape judgment and punishment. Look at chapter 5 verse 16. A word from my mouth, Ezekiel 5 verse 16. When I shall send upon them the evil arrows of famine, which shall be. So Ezekiel was to sound an alarm for them to escape that judgment. That judgment, that word in his mouth is arrow. I will send upon them, he says, the evil arrows of famine. He says, we shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and I will break your staff of bread. Verse 17. So will I send upon you famine and evil beasts, and they shall bereave thee, and pestilence and blood shall pass through thee, and I will bring this sword upon thee, and how the Lord has spoken it. So for them to escape that, what will Ezekiel do? Ezekiel was to warn them before the arrows were shot. Let's go back to that Psalms 11 we read earlier on, verses 2. Psalms 11 and verses 2. Psalms 11 and verses 2. Go back to some text we read earlier on to make further emphasis. Psalms 11 verse 2. For lo, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privately shoot at the upright in acts. They make it ready. They are at alert to shoot at the upright in acts. That lets us see the stealth and the treachery of the wicked. They are positioning to destroy the righteous, to cause the righteous to fall, to cause the righteous to stutter, to cause the righteous to lose his innocency and the integrity of his acts. In that same Psalms also, chapter 64, Psalm 64, and from verses 3 to 4. The way the devil does is that the devil hides in secret and shoots in broad daylight. He hides in secret and shoots in broad daylight. Demons working. I said earlier on the element of this world. Some of these elements are invisible and they are working. Psalm 64 verse 3 and 4. Who wields their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot the arrows, even bitter words. Verse 4. That they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly they shoot at him and fear not. Suddenly. When the devil wants to destroy a man, he shoots suddenly. And in this description, it talks about harmful, malicious, malevolent words. And these are attacks on enemies, emphasizing the cruelty and the suddenness of such actions. Suddenly. Look at Jeremiah 9. When the devil sees that you are out of it, he now shoots. He knows you have left a place of covering. He now shoots at you. Jeremiah chapter 9 verse 8. You know, there was one time in a church in Nigeria, right, that the Lord instructed the pastor to to take cane and flog some pastors in that church. And there were some that they were older than the pastor, as it is in the church. And they said in their hearts that who does this man think he is, that he will take in and flog me. And what was the next thing they did? They picked their car key, took their bags, entered into their car, and they zoomed out of the camp. And as they were leaving the camp like this on the expressway, as they came into the express, a trailer just ran into them, and all of them died like that. What do you think happened? The devil shot at their hearts, and when he saw that their heart was weakened, he now completely destroyed them. Before the devil destroys a man, he destroys his heart. The devil will not have his way into your heart. Amen. Are you looking at me? You have to say amen to that. I'm praying for you. That's honor. I'm still praying for you. See the way you're looking at me. Stand up. I'm still praying for you. You're looking at me. That's how to respond. I said the devil will not have his way into your heart. Amen. That's how to behave as a believer, as a member of a church. You never stand and just start looking, kill on so. If your heart is not positioned in honor, there's nothing I can say. If your heart has no honor in it. The devil first destroys the man's heart, then he goes ahead to destroy him. How did the devil destroy Judas? Let me show you that. Matthew 26. He entered into his heart. Matthew 26, look at verses 3 and 4 first. Then assembled together, have your seats, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders of the people unto the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. Verse 4. And they consulted that they might take Jesus by subtlety, says, and kill him. Verse 5. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar among the people. Go to verses 14. He says, then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, who went to the chief priests and said unto them, what will he give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. And from that time, he says, he sought opportunity to betray him. To betray who? To betray God. You read the same account in Luke 22. Luke chapter 22. Same accounts. And verses 2 and verses 3. Luke 22, verse 2 and 3. Same accounts. Don't forget, Judas Iscariot surrendered himself to the chief priest, right, that he would betray the Lord Jesus. Luke 22, verse 2. And the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they fear the people. Verse 3. Then entered Satan into Judas named Iscariot. He says, being of the number of the 12. He says, Satan entered into his heart. That's like an arrow. He should want no kind. He should new one no kind. Ibate should want no kind. Kini swe. Kilo pada mujade. Let me show you in Acts 1. Owo tom from the 30 shekels of silver was the same money he went to buy a land, and he hanged himself on that same land. The same death similar to that of Haman. Acts 1. Acts 1 and verses 18. Isu bayeje o wonu kan o bayeje o taufa si okan. Now this man purchased the field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. When he hanged himself, kilo shele, and when he fell, everything inside him, it says, busted out. His death was not a good one at all. How was the devil able to get him? He entered into his heart. Jeremiah chapter 9. May the devil not find his way into your heart. Kò ní ráyè wọlé. Kò sí ọ̀fà kankan tí èṣù ata sí ọkàn yín tí a wọlé. Iná Ọlọ́run kí ó máa dá wọn padà. Sàmì ẹ̀ dáadáa, mo ní kí iná Ọlọ́run kí ó máa dá wọn padà. Jeremiah chapter 9 verses 8. It says, their tongue is as an arrow, shot out. He speaketh deceits. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart, he says, he layeth his wit. He says, their mouth, like an arrow shot out. Eshuman lo enu àwọn ènìyàn. Eshuman lo enu wọn láti ta ọfà. Enu àwọn ènìyàn. He says their tongue is like an arrow shot out. Kí ló ń sọ? Deceit, ìtànjẹ. Speaker deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart, he layeth his wit. Pẹ̀lú ẹnu ẹ̀. He has set traps on the way. Traps. These are dangers lurking around in the way. Let's also see Lamentations chapter 3. The fiery dart of the wicked. You have authority against them. Ezekiel chapter 3. That's Ezekiel, Lamentations, sorry. Lamentations chapter 3, verses 12 and 30. You prevail against any attack. Lamentations 3, verse 12 to 13. He hath bent his bow and set me as a mark for the arrow. Verse 13. He hath caused the arrows of his quiver to enter into my reign. The arrows of his quiver. Does anyone have any translation different from KJV? For that text? What does the translation say? Oh, you're not there yet. And I'm done reading. Let's go to Psalms 91. You have to be serious. Let's read from verses 1. Psalms 91. And from verses 1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. I pray for you. He shall cover thee with the feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night. So when he says thou shalt not be afraid, he's talking about the fearlessness. The fearlessness of the new creation man. The fearlessness in the face of opposition. In the face of persecution. Because we are in the secret place of the Most High God. The fearlessness and protection of the new creation man. He says, thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. So the devil walks as a terror in the night. He says also as an arrow. That means in daily activities. Arrows in wars, arrows of anguish, arrows of judgment, arrows of wrath,